Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I'm Suzy Charman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Road Safety Foundation, a charity established in the 1980s. You might know us from our annual crash risk mapping work and from our involvement in DFT's Safer Roads Fund. We work closely with our sister charities EuroRAP and iRAP, working primarily on safer road infrastructure. You might also be aware of our work running the Older Drivers Task Force. Today, I'm going to talk about combining safe speeds and safe infrastructure. I'm going to dive in straight away with a graph. Here's some well-known work that was published in 2005 as part of a PhD thesis. These curves show the survivability of different crash types at different speeds. On the y-axis, we have the risk of being fatally injured, and on the x-axis, we have collision speed. You can see for the pedestrian and cyclist curve that above 20 miles per hour, risk of being fatally injured increases very sharply. So at 20 miles per hour, the risk is at around 10%. By 30 miles per hour, the risk of being fatally injured is at around 80 to 90%. For the side collision curve, the tipping point beyond which fatal injury risk goes up steeply is at around 30 miles per hour. And for frontal collisions, it's at 45 miles per hour. There are other similar pieces of work, for example, a TRL paper by Richards, 2010, which have similar, although not exactly the same findings. What is clear is that the research here is a little old, and we know that the passive protection in vehicles has improved in the meantime, so we could do with a more up-to-date analysis. Run-off road crashes, the fourth main crash type that we tend to talk about, are a bit different. Here, the survivability of a run-off road crash will depend on a multitude of factors, such as speed, the distance to an object and its type, and the angle it's struck at. There are no simple rules here, but the relative risk is captured in the iRAP risk factors. If we're going to deliver a safe system, we must not allow collisions that could result in a fatality. So like Klaus Tingball and Howarth in 1999 suggested, you can turn all of this on its head and start to say, given our tolerances to crash forces, for locations where it's possible to have conflict between cars and pedestrians or cyclists, the maximum safe speed is 20 miles per hour. For locations where you have junctions where you have car-to-car side impacts, so junctions like crossroads or T-junctions, your safe speed will be 30 miles per hour. And for roads where there's no physical separation for opposing traffic, so where head-on crashes can happen, your maximum safe speed would be 45 miles per hour. Here are some thoughts. All roads are safe at a speed, i.e., if there was a crash, at that speed, nobody would be killed or seriously injured. However, in many cases, this would be lower than the current posted speed limit and/or actual speeds. Indeed, the iRAP system is very helpful in demonstrating this point. You might know iRAP as a way of assessing roads and the likely impact of different road safety engineering treatments. But speed is also a really important part of the iRAP model, so it tells us a lot about the interaction between road infrastructure and speed. All roads are safe or would achieve 5 stars at a speed. Of course, just changing the posted speed limit so that it's a safe speed isn't going to work at all. We're talking about trying to change actual speeds so that they are safe. Here is an urban road environment where there aren't many facilities for pedestrians and cyclists. You can see on the speedo that this kind of road would achieve 5 stars for pedestrians if speeds were below 12 miles per hour. 4 stars if speeds were between 12 and 20 miles per hour, 3 stars between 20 and 25, 2 stars between around 25 and 28, and 1 star if speeds were above 28 miles per hour. This urban environment has slightly better facilities, separate wide footways, crossings that also calm traffic, and so on. Here, the iRAP star ratings would suggest, with these facilities in place, that this is a 5-star environment for pedestrians, with vehicle speeds up to around 25 miles per hour and 4-star up to around 30 miles per hour. For a rural road, where you have good run-off road clear zones and some separation of traffic moving in opposing directions through cross-hatchings, the road achieves 5 stars and up to around 40 miles per hour. Without cross-hatching and with roadside obstacles a little closer, road achieves 5 stars up to around 20 miles per hour and 4 stars up to around 25 miles per hour. And here's a high specification motorway with good runoff road protection and medium barriers. 5 stars are achieved on this kind of cross section all the way up to about 60 miles per hour, and 4 stars up to above 70 miles per hour. A good model for safe system delivery is to think about this notion of safe speed, which I would argue one could assess using iRAP methodology, and having the aim of bringing the safe speed and credible speeds, for this we use 85th percentile speeds as a sort of proxy, in line with your desired functional speed for a road. And what do I mean by functional speed? The functional speed reflects the role of the road and what its purpose is. Does it have a movement or place function? What sort of connectivity does it need to offer, and who is the road for? Once you know these pieces of information, you can define a functional speed for a road. The next challenge then is to try and make sure that the safe speed for that road matches up with the functional speed. Where the safe speed for the road is lower than the desired functional speed, road safety engineering measures might just edge the safe speed up. You can work out what you need to do to the road to make sure it can work safely at the desired functional speed. Then we need to think about whether the functional speed is credible. Is there any chance that people will use the road at that speed? Or is it giving the impression of being a faster road? Typically open-looking road environments that are wide will encourage higher speeds. Is there anything we can do to bring down the 85th percentile speeds? For example, making the road look narrower. We need to use psychological traffic calming measures more to trick people into thinking that the road is a slower environment. Philosophically, I'd argue that a safe system is achieved when these 3 speeds are in equilibrium. Where one aspect of this fails, we have a dysfunctional system where death and serious injury will occur. A brief side note on setting speed limits. Historically, we've set speed limits according to 85th percentile speeds, and sometimes then mean speeds. The OECD report on speed management published in 2006 said this approach is increasingly considered as no longer appropriate for today's road environment, now that the substantial increases in risk associated with small increments in travel speeds by a majority of road users are better understood. Instead, the report suggests an approach whereby speed limits are set according to road function and risk. So here's where it all gets a bit tricky. If you signed up to adopting a safe system or Vision Zero, this means we have to prevent opportunities for there to be non-survivable crashes. So that means understanding the sort of road layouts we have, the risks that exist, and how to tackle these to reduce risk of fatal injury. We have some big challenges ahead of us. Higher speeds are viewed as offering better mobility. We're used to moving around faster than is ultimately entirely safe for everybody. Upgrading roads so they're safer at higher speeds can be costly and difficult to achieve. Dealing with roadside runoff risk, for example, is a big challenge. You can't cut down the trees, crash barriers are ugly, or are they? Here are some examples of wooden clad barriers in Provence. They don't look too bad. They blend in with the environment. We need better research as well upon which to base decisions. So those graphs I showed you earlier, based on quite old data now, we need to update those and really have a good idea of what safe speed is. And to really reach our goal, we'll have to have a radical rethink. So what would I suggest? I think we need to set about defining the function of our roads afresh. I know some local authorities are doing this right now. We do this based on who needs to use the road and for what, and we end up with a functional road hierarchy. Each road type would then get a functional speed. Within this, we might consider changes to national speed limits. I'm particularly thinking about single carriageway rural roads here. Then we need to assess what is necessary to make sure a road can operate safely at the desired functional speed. iRAP, of course, becomes a tool to help in this. And finally, even with this rather idealistic approach, I recognise we won't be able to do everything at once. Rather, we'll need to plan and prioritise treatments based on benefit-cost ratios and the like, and in an attempt to capture contribution to a consistent and safe network. So this is okay and thoroughly reasonable. However, part of credibility and achieving credible speeds on our road network is all about introducing consistency, which you don't really get when you address a network bit by bit. Actually, sometimes you end up with the opposite. You can move away from consistency when you bring in a safety scheme. Functional hierarchies ideally need to be defined at the national level for consistency, to allow us to take advantage of the national speed limit system and the opportunity to communicate key changes with the public. If we're being serious, we might look to the Dutch Sustainable Safety Initiative for inspiration. In the Dutch Sustainable Safety approach, they've analysed and determined the role of each road and have created blueprints for each road type, something to work towards over a longer period of time, whilst also prioritising investment en route. Here are some of the blueprints which I shall not linger on, and thank you to Swab for these images. This one's an urban access road. You can see features here that keep traffic moving slowly, that also allow pedestrians and cyclists somewhere to be separate from moving traffic. Here's an urban distributor. Again, as we've come to recognise in the Dutch landscape, we have excellent cycle facilities. A rural access road, a rural distributor, and a rural regional freeway. These are blueprints that the Dutch road authorities have adopted and have been working towards collaboratively over the last 20 years. The advantages of this kind of approach is that you get a simple and easy to understand hierarchy where roads of different types diverge over time and are easily identifiable. The safety of all road users can be taken into account in the blueprints. You get better compliance because of improved consistency, leading to better credibility of speed limits. And it's brought forward a national understanding about speed limits and the road types and what and who they are for. Of course, it isn't easy. We're talking about a lot of planning and creation of the road types and blueprints. Agreement amongst road authorities needs to be achieved, and of course, this is a long-term solution that will cost money. So are we ready for a rethink? Do we realise how unsafe current speeds are for the road environments we have? Can we invest in defining the functional hierarchy of our roads afresh, and can we reach agreement on this? Over time, can we move towards greater consistency and distinct road types? Are we prepared to lower speed limits, even national ones, for roads that do not have a city-to-city or town-to-town function? Can we invest in safer provision on roads that need to have traffic moving relatively fast? And can we invest in better facilities for vulnerable road users, particularly where speeds are above 20 to 30 miles per hour? I hope this has been a useful think piece, and I look forward to the discussions later on in the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzy.